Most people think their financial struggle is about the economy, inflation, or bad timing, but the Bible quietly exposes a harder truth. Money doesn't respond to excuses. It responds to order. That's why two people can live in the same country, face the same economy, and still end up with completely different financial outcomes. One grows peace and provision. The other grows stress and scarcity. Here's the uncomfortable belief most Christians were never taught to question. Praying for more money without changing daily habits doesn't invite blessing. It delays it. God is not impressed by ambition without stewardship. In business, results don't come from desire. They come from alignment. And Scripture has been teaching this long before modern finance had ever existed. What if the real reason your money isn't growing has nothing to do with opportunity and everything to do with identity? What if the Bible isn't blocking your ability to make money, but revealing why increase hasn't been trusted to you yet? This message challenges popular beliefs, but it also offers relief. If the problem is internal, then the solution is finally within reach. If you've ever felt frustrated watching others advance while you stay stuck, or confused about why your effort doesn't match your results, you're not alone. This isn't about working harder. It's about understanding the biblical patterns that govern prosperity and learning how to cooperate with them intentionally. If you like our content, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. In the next few minutes, you'll see how Scripture explains money growth with clarity, how small decisions quietly shape massive outcomes, and how you can begin aligning your habits, your business, and your finances with principles that actually work. Starting today, the hidden link between money and habits. Money never follows intention, it follows behavior. From a biblical perspective, wealth is rarely about how much someone earns and almost always about how someone lives. Scripture quietly teaches that money is attracted to order, discipline, and stewardship. That's why two people can earn the same income, work the same hours, and still end up in radically different financial realities. Their habits are speaking louder than their prayers. In the Bible, habits are often described as ways or paths. Proverbs 4:26 says, "Give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways." In modern language, that's habit formation. Every repeated financial decision becomes a path. Spending without thinking, avoiding numbers, delaying responsibility, all of these are habits planting seeds that eventually grow into stress, debt, or scarcity. Money simply reflects those patterns back. From a business standpoint, this principle is universal. Companies don't fail because of one bad month. They fail because of repeated small decisions made daily. The same applies personally. Someone who tracks expenses weekly, saves consistently, and learns how money works will outperform someone who earns more but lives emotionally. This is why learning how to make money is less important than learning how to manage it. Jesus himself spoke more about stewardship than about riches. In Luke 16:10, he said, "Whoever is faithful with very little will also be faithful with much." That verse isn't spiritual poetry, it's a financial law. If someone can't handle $100 with wisdom, giving them $10,000 won't solve anything. Money magnifies habits, it doesn't fix them. Practically, this starts small. A person might begin by checking their bank balance daily instead of avoiding it. Or writing down every expense for 7 days, not to judge themselves, but to observe patterns. In business terms, this is basic financial reporting. In biblical terms, it's accountability. Awareness alone often changes behavior without force. What most people don't realize is that habits also shape identity. When someone acts like a steward consistently, they begin to see themselves as one. And identity is powerful. It quietly influences every future decision. This is why habits come before breakthroughs. And as this identity forms, something deeper begins to shift, opening the door to the next principle that explains why wishing never produces wealth, but planting always does. Why wealth is a seed, not a wish. Most people were taught to treat money like a miracle instead of a process. They wish for more income, pray for better opportunities, and hope something external will finally change. But Scripture consistently shows that God doesn't respond to wishes. He responds to seeds. In the kingdom, increase is never random. It is planted. That's why money, business growth, and the ability to make money all follow the same spiritual logic. Genesis 8:22 states, "As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest will never cease." This is not just agricultural truth, it's a financial law built into creation. A seed is small, unimpressive, and often ignored, yet it carries everything needed for multiplication. Wishing produces emotion, seeding produces results, And God honors the latter because it aligns with how reality was designed to function. In practical terms, wealth seeds look boring. Saving consistently, investing regularly, learning one financial concept at a time, improving one skill that increases income. None of these actions feel dramatic, but they are powerful. In business, this is called compounding. In Scripture, it's called faithfulness. Both describe the same mechanism operating through different lenses. Jesus reinforced this idea through parables. In Matthew 25, the servants who multiplied what they were given weren't praised for ambition, vision boards, or bold declarations. They were rewarded for action. The servant who buried his talent wasn't evil, he was inactive. And inactivity is the enemy of multiplication. Money grows where movement exists. A simple modern example makes this clear. Someone who invests a small amount every month into stable assets, such as broad market index funds or solid dividend-paying companies, will often outperform someone waiting for the perfect moment. The seed doesn't need perfect timing. It needs consistent planting. This is how ordinary people quietly build extraordinary financial futures. What makes this principle uncomfortable is that it removes excuses. If wealth is a seed, then today's financial reality is connected to yesterday's actions. That realization can sting, but it's also empowering. Because once someone understands this, they stop waiting for permission, luck, or the economy. They start planting deliberately, and that naturally leads to the next question. If seeds matter more than wishes, where exactly are most people planting the wrong ones? Breaking the lie, money doesn't grow in the economy. It grows in your heart. One of the most dangerous financial lies of modern culture is the belief that money is controlled by external forces alone. People blame the economy, the government, inflation, or their boss for why they can't make money or grow a business. While external factors do exist, Scripture teaches something far more uncomfortable and far more empowering. Money responds first to the condition of the heart, not the condition of the market. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Financial decisions are emotional before they are logical. Fear, impatience, pride, and insecurity quietly drive spending, saving, investing, and risk-taking. When the heart is unstable, money becomes unstable too. This is why two people facing the same economy experience completely different outcomes. In business, this truth shows up clearly. Investors who operate from panic lose money in downturns. Entrepreneurs who act from fear miss opportunities. But those with emotional discipline, not perfect knowledge, tend to outperform others over time. The heart sets the pace. The numbers follow. This is why learning to make money without mastering emotions rarely produces lasting wealth. Jesus warned about this directly in Matthew 6:21. "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Money always reveals internal priorities. Someone may say they value freedom, generosity, or legacy, but their bank statements often tell a different story. Alignment begins when the heart and actions start telling the same narrative. A practical shift happens when someone stops asking, "What's the market doing?" and starts asking, "What am I becoming?" Instead of reacting emotionally to headlines, they build habits that function in any economy: budgeting, skill development, long-term investing, and strategic thinking. These are heart-driven disciplines disguised as financial strategies. When the heart is trained for patience, stewardship, and long-term vision, money begins to behave differently. It stops feeling chaotic and starts becoming predictable. This inner alignment doesn't make someone immune to hardship, but it makes them resilient within it. And once this lie is broken, the focus naturally shifts from chasing outcomes to building systems, which opens the door to the next principle of consistent planting and harvest. The principle of consistent planting and harvest. The Bible never presents prosperity as an accident. It presents it as a pattern. From Genesis to Proverbs, increase is always connected to consistency, not intensity. Many people plant once, get tired, and then complain when nothing grows. But Scripture makes it clear. Harvest is reserved for those who refuse to quit the field. Money, business growth, and the ability to make money all respond to repetition. Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." That verse applies directly to finances. Most people don't fail because they chose the wrong strategy. They fail because they stopped too soon. They plant for a few weeks, don't see results, and abandon the process right before it starts working. In financial life, consistency looks unglamorous. Saving every month, investing regularly, learning slowly, improving one skill at a time, none of this feels powerful in the moment. Yet this is exactly how wealth compounds. In business, this principle explains why companies with boring, predictable systems often outperform those chasing trends and hype. Scripture shows this clearly in the life of Isaac. Genesis 26 says Isaac planted crops during a famine and reaped 100-fold return. The miracle wasn't timing, it was obedience and consistency in unfavorable conditions. While others froze in fear, Isaac planted anyway. That same principle applies today. Disciplined action during uncertainty often produces the greatest harvest. A practical example is someone who commits to automatic investing every paycheck, regardless of market emotions. Over time, this habit smooths volatility and builds momentum. Another example is consistently reinvesting profits into skill development, education, or scalable assets instead of lifestyle inflation. These small decisions quietly separate builders from spenders. What makes this principle powerful is that it removes pressure. You don't need to predict the future. You don't need perfect information. You only need to keep planting wisely. And when someone finally embraces this rhythm, they stop chasing miracles and start building momentum, which naturally leads to the next question. How do you design systems that keep you planting even when motivation disappears? Building financial systems, not waiting for miracles. One of the clearest differences between people who grow wealth and those who stay stuck is this. Builders rely on systems, not emotions. Most people wait for a miracle, a raise, a breakthrough, a lucky moment. But Scripture consistently shows that God works through structure. Money flows where order exists. Business grows where systems replace chaos. In the Bible, Joseph didn't save Egypt through prayer alone. He designed a system. Genesis 41 shows that during years of abundance, he stored a fixed portion of the harvest consistently. There was no drama, no excitement, no emotional decision-making, just structure. That structure didn't just preserve wealth. It multiplied influence. Egypt became a provider to nations because one man understood systems. Modern finance works the same way. People who automate savings, schedule investments, and track expenses don't rely on motivation. They remove emotion from the process. This is why automatic contributions to retirement accounts or long-term investment portfolios outperform sporadic emotional decisions. Systems make money behave. Emotions make it leak. Jesus reinforced this principle when he spoke about building a house on rock instead of sand. Systems are the rock, feelings are the sand. When income fluctuates, markets shake, or unexpected expenses appear, those without systems panic. Those with systems adjust calmly. This is why disciplined business owners survive storms that destroy emotional operators. A practical step is simple. Decide in advance what happens to money the moment it enters your hands. Assign percentages. Create categories. Remove decision fatigue. When money already has instructions, temptation loses power. This turns discipline into default behavior instead of daily struggle. Once systems are in place, something surprising happens. Peace replaces anxiety. Decisions become easier. Progress becomes predictable. And when structure is established, God often begins increasing capacity. Not to punish, but to prepare, which leads directly to the next principle most people misunderstand. Delay is not rejection, it's training. Why God isn't delaying your wealth? He's preparing you for it. One of the most misunderstood experiences in the financial journey is delay. Many people interpret waiting as punishment, rejection, or lack of favor. But Scripture consistently shows a different pattern. Delay is often evidence of preparation. Money, business expansion, and the ability to make money require internal capacity before external increase can be sustained. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Seasons exist not to frustrate, but to form. When wealth arrives before wisdom, it becomes destructive. This is why sudden money often disappears quickly, while slowly built wealth tends to remain and multiply. Time protects what the heart is still learning to carry. Biblically, David was anointed king long before he ever sat on the throne. That gap wasn't wasted time, it was training. During those years, David learned leadership, restraint, responsibility, and trust. If the crown had come early, it would have crushed him. Financially, the same principle applies. Income grows safely only when character grows first. In modern terms, someone may want a thriving business but lacks consistency, emotional control, or financial discipline. Delay forces growth in these areas. Learning how to manage small cash flows, handle stress, and make sober decisions builds the internal framework required for larger responsibility. This is why many entrepreneurs fail at scale, not because of strategy but because of immaturity. A practical way to use delay wisely is to treat it as a training season. Read foundational finance books like The Intelligent Investor or Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Learn basic accounting. Study how successful companies structure cash flow. Delay becomes productive when it's intentional. Waiting without growth creates frustration. Waiting with preparation creates acceleration. When this perspective shifts, frustration turns into focus. Instead of asking, "Why isn't it happening yet?" the question becomes, "Who am I becoming while I wait?" And once that internal alignment is built, increase often arrives quietly and suddenly. That realization sets the stage for the final truth most people overlook. The smallest actions today are the seeds of the greatest harvest tomorrow. Small actions, big harvest. Planting for your financial future today. The greatest mistake people make with money is underestimating the power of small actions. They believe transformation requires dramatic change, but Scripture teaches the opposite. God consistently works through the ordinary, the repetitive, and the faithful. In finance, the same law applies. Small, intentional actions, repeated daily, quietly shape the future more than any single breakthrough ever could. Zechariah 4:10 says, "Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." This verse perfectly captures how wealth is built. No strong business, no lasting financial freedom, and no sustainable ability to make money begins with scale. It begins with consistency. The seed doesn't look like the harvest, but it already contains it. Practically, this might look like saving a small amount daily, learning one financial principle per week, or improving one income-producing skill at a time. Someone who invests regularly, even in modest amounts, often outpaces those waiting for perfect conditions. Time and consistency outperform intensity every time. This is how ordinary people create extraordinary results. Jesus emphasized this pattern when he compared faith to a mustard seed. Though tiny, it grows into something far larger than expected. Financially, the principle is identical. One disciplined habit multiplies into many. One wise decision strengthens future ones. Momentum builds quietly until it becomes impossible to ignore. From a business perspective, this is how empires are formed. Not through hype, but through systems that work daily without applause. Cash flow stabilizes. Decision-making improves. Stress decreases. Progress becomes measurable. And most importantly, identity shifts from someone chasing money to someone who attracts it through structure. When someone embraces this truth, urgency replaces hesitation. They stop waiting for the right time and start acting now, because planting only happens in the present moment. And once that shift occurs, the groundwork is laid for a message that ties everything together, not as an ending, but as a call to reflection and action. Everything you've heard here points to one unavoidable truth. Money is never neutral. It either reflects discipline or exposes disorder. The Bible doesn't promise wealth without responsibility, but it does promise increase to those who align their habits, their business decisions, and their identity with wisdom. This isn't about becoming obsessed with money, it's about becoming faithful with it. Now, the real question isn't what you understood, but what you're willing to apply. Which habit needs to change first? Where are you still waiting for a miracle instead of building a system? What would your finances look like in 5 years if you committed today to small, consistent actions instead of emotional decisions? Transformation doesn't happen in moments of inspiration, but in moments of obedience. You don't need to master everything at once. You only need to plant wisely today. One decision, one habit, one disciplined step forward. When action replaces delay, momentum begins. And when momentum builds, peace follows. This is how money stops controlling you and starts serving the purpose God placed in your hands. Write in the comments, "I manage money with God's principles," and watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the course of your business and your finances from this day forward. If this message touched you in any way, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you can continue learning how biblical wisdom, business principles, and practical action work together to help you make money with clarity, purpose, and peace.